Good morning, ladies and coronavirus germs. This is your ticker guy. Let's talk politics, and then we're going to talk about facts. Politics first. Market's way up, 7%. The reason is that the Senate is going to throw money all over the place. Okay? The economy here, and the lies continue. 15 days to stop the spread. The U.S. economy continues to suffer in order to take the necessary measures to combat COVID-19. And we got the Heritage Foundation Research Fellow. Oh, yeah. One of those people. He's a fellow. Like Fauci's a doctor. And Bix. Bix. Yeah, we ought to call her Dr. Depression. You know, folks, if you do not look at the political aspect of this in the lens of what the government has done in every prior case and has done nothing about, and no one has been punished when they've been wrong, you're never going to actually evaluate anything based on science. Because you're going to let people take half answers and half truths and turn them into truths and parade them around the media, which is what's happening right now. Right now, we're being told that it's Trump's fault that an old couple took fish tank cleaner, which happened to have as one of its ingredients, probably not the only ingredient, but one of its ingredients was chloroquine phosphate, which, by the way, is the more dangerous, less effective form of hydroxychloroquine. Okay? Chloroquine phosphate was the first one found. Shortly thereafter, the hydroxy form was found. The hydroxy form is much less dangerous, which is why that's the one that we typically use these days, okay, for malaria and for RA and all these, all right? But no, this other one was listed as an ingredient on a bottle of fish tank cleaner. Well, why did they use the more dangerous and older form in fish tank cleaner? Because it's to clean fish tanks. It's not made to eat. But these two people, because they heard the word chloroquine, turned around and put it in their drink. I don't know, maybe their coffee, whatever. Consumed it. One of them dropped dead. The other one is in critical condition. And this is Trump's fault because he used the word chloroquine on the air. It's Trump's fault. So says the MSN, mainstream media, all of them. Oh, yeah, they're all running stories. Oh, Trump is such an asshole. You shouldn't take this drug. By the way, that's the other fallacy that they're all running. You shouldn't take this drug. They didn't take a drug. They took fish tank cleaner. I mean, folks, would you walk into your bathroom and if chloroquine phosphate was on the label of toilet bowl cleaner, would you drink toilet bowl cleaner? Are you serious? What? Oh my God. But this is the dishonesty of the mainstream media. And by the way, this is not just a Trump thing. The media did the same thing when AIDS started. And they were shameless about it too. You have the same risk of getting AIDS if you're heterosexual as if you're gay. Heterosexual sex is a very efficient means of transmitting AIDS. Actually, it's not. It can transmit AIDS, but it's not a very efficient means. Screwing in the ass happens to be an extremely efficient way of doing it. Why did it ramp all through Africa and places like that as well, where they don't have very many gay people? Well, guess what? Over in Africa, guess what they use as a means of birth control in heterosexual couples? No, I'm not kidding. They really do. Is it potentially a hazardous exercise? Oh, duh. Okay, we knew that. Epidemiologically, we knew that. Then you have Dianne Feinstein, who was mayor of San Francisco, and as I pointed out, she refused to close the bathhouses, even though the CDC and the NIH, the epidemiological proof was in hand that that's how this thing was being spread so like wildfire everywhere. And by the way, some of the people caught up in that 450,000 who died, Americans who died, was essentially all hemophiliacs. a genetic disorder that forces you to get blood transfusions with clotting factor, because if you don't have clotting factor at all in your body and your body doesn't produce it properly if you have this disorder and you get any kind of a cut, anything, a bruise, you're dead because your blood can't clot. So you have to have these transfusions, and none of these people, and they have to be on a regular basis too, none of these people did anything, made no choice, and yet there you go. There are, folks, AIDS almost killed almost every single hemophiliac in the country. I don't even know what percentage of gay men got wiped out by it, but it was high. And that was, and the false hope too from the media. We will have a vaccine. You keep this in mind, folks. When they tell you they're going to have a coronavirus vaccine, we had the very same load of bullshit that was run for 10 fucking years when AIDS was going on. We'll have a vaccine soon. It's okay. It'll be all right. We'll have drugs that will control it soon. It's okay. Well, eventually we got the drugs. But we never got the vaccine. Never happened. All of that was lies. It was false hope and in many contexts it was scaremongering too. There was a bunch of scaremongering very early on. It didn't last long, thank God. That you could get it by holding hands or shaking hands. You could get it by what is called casual contact. And oh my God, we're all going to die. Well, you know what? It's a really good thing that wasn't true, because we all would have been dead, pretty much. Probably would have killed 50% of the population, at least. You would have had to literally never have contact with anybody in order to avoid that. Of course, it didn't work out that way. But do you want to know how many people actually ever paid for all the bullshit that they ran during those years? And I know, look, folks, if you're not in your 50s, you weren't alive when this was going on, or you weren't sentient. One of the two. You're a little baby, it doesn't count. This is not taught in government schools. Oh yeah, that there was a serious crisis with AIDS, that's taught in government schools. But all the lies, all the false hope, all the bullshit that was spread by media and politicians and people from the NIH and the CDC and all the crap that went around, and the inaction, the intentional inaction, Dianne Feinstein not closing the bathhouses because something like 1 in 5 voters in San Francisco at the time was a gay man. And she was afraid that if she did that, by God, she'd lose her job. So rather than do the right thing, she killed people. She let them die. Folks, you have to go where the evidence takes you. I'm not a politician, which means I'm going to tell you what I really think. And then the newest one now, the media running around, you are not immune if you're a millennial. Of course you're not immune. Are we talking about what the known antagonists are to this virus? No. Is the media paying any attention to it? No. Is Fauci and Bix or whatever the fuck her name is she paying attention to it? Did she get up there early on in this thing? And has she done it since? Because I've watched all these press conferences. Has anybody told anybody what the antagonists are? The known antagonists that actually cause overexpression in the areas that this virus targets. Now, does that make them causal? No. And sometimes you don't really have a whole lot of choice. If you have screamingly high blood pressure, a lot of those drugs potentially are antagonists to this virus. In other words, they aggravate an infection. They antagonize the infection. They make it worse. They don't suppress it, they make it worse. They're not antagonistic to the infection. They're antagonistic to the result. They enhance the result. And that's anything that causes more expression of what's called ACE2. Now, do we know that all of those things cause worse results? No, we don't, because the science isn't in on this. But we do know that all of those things do change that expression, do change it. So to the extent that you can change those things without having a serious bad effect on your health, you should change those things. What is one of them? Nicotine. Not just smoking. It's nicotine. So if you're using a vape that has tobacco replacement in it, a nicotine vape, you may be making your risk higher. This is correlated directly with the stats out of Italy and out of China. A huge percentage of men versus women, a big skew exists in smoking in China. And this virus has more serious outcomes and more mortality among men. Is that proof that that's the case? No, it's not. But we know that if you use nicotine, there's more ACE2 expression in your lungs. And that is what this virus uses to attack your lungs. So why would you voluntarily increase that? Well, if you want to, go ahead. But should we tell people the truth? Yes, just like we should have told people the truth when AIDS was going around, that if you screw in the ass, the odds of you getting it go up substantially. If you use IV drugs, the odds of you getting it go up substantially. And those odds are not small. And if you choose to do it anyway, well, sucks to be you. We're not going to put a gun in your face because you made a decision. That's stupid. But folks, we have to tell people the truth. The other one, over-the-counter pain relievers and fever medication. Tylenol's the only one that doesn't, when used, increase ACE2 expression. So if you have a fever and there's a possibility it could be COVID, and there's always a possibility until you get tested, right? If you are sick, and the possibility exists because when it first starts, you don't feel very sick, and you take aspirin, naproxen, or ibuprofen, you may increase your risk of actually making the attack on your body by the virus worse. May. We don't know. But you might, because the physiological mechanism matches. And you say, well, I feel like shit. I really use Tylenol. Tylenol doesn't use that same chemical mechanism. That same biological interaction is not there. If you're using a vape and it's full of nicotine, consider stopping. I know it's hard. And for God's sakes, if you start to feel sick, then you really need to think about stopping. We can't leave the economy shut down, folks. The facts are that the data out of Italy, the worst hit Western nation where we can actually trust the information, is that in Italy, only 0.5% of the people who have died over there have no comorbidities. What are these comorbidities? We know what they are. High blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. 0.5%. That's all. That means that your risk of dying among positive tests in Italy, and again, this is only those people that have been tested, which is not everyone, which means the denominator is too small by a lot. All right? But your risk is 0.05% approximately. It's not 0.05. Now, if you have those comorbidities, well, there's going to be a problem. There really is going to be a problem. All right, and that's not bullshit. And the reality is that if you lift these lockdowns, will there be an increased spread? Maybe. But you know what? If you keep them for the amount of time necessary to suppress them until there's a vaccine, what if there's never a vaccine? We were lied about this. We were lied to about this before. You can never get to herd immunity and the place where this thing starts to dissipate on its own with the lockdowns in place. It will never happen, ever. Can you be so repressive and test everybody and find everybody who's positive and lock them in a cage until they either recover or they die? Yes, if you're willing to have a police state, and if you have enough tests, and if you have enough places to put them, and there's too many ands. We don't have any of them. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the ability to do the tracing. We don't have the ability to do the testing, and we don't have the ability to do the housing, and we never will. By the time we developed all those things, if we as a society were willing to put up with them and not shoot any goon that came to the door and try, which some people will, it would be over. So stop with the bullshit about things that can't work. If you happen to be at high risk and you cannot mitigate that risk because of pre-existing conditions that you can't change, listen, if you ate yourself to death and you have type 2 diabetes, you weigh 300 pounds, there's nothing you can do about it today. There's something you should have done about it 10, 20, 30 years ago, but today you can't change that. The virus does not have 30 years. You don't have 30 years. You need to get right now, into isolation yourself. And if the people you live with won't do it, you need to throw them out, or you need to leave. Absolutely. Must happen. Secondly, we must have surveillance. We must know what the truth is, and we must tell people the truth. We're not telling people the truth. Matt Stoller, just now, it is not crazy to want to reopen the economy. We have to do that. What's crazy is to open the economy without a strong public health bureaucracy and testing regime so we can avoid mass infections. Matt, it doesn't fucking exist. I'm sorry that it doesn't exist. You're sorry that it doesn't exist. It doesn't fucking exist. You are a goddamned lunatic. You are arguing for the impossible. What can we do? We can tell people who are at high risk, you must self-isolate, and if you don't, very bad things might happen. We can use prophylaxis where it's indicated and under medical supervision for those people at high risk where they can. Some of those people can use prophylaxis with these drugs. It may or may not work. But if you increase the odds, look, if it only works in half the people, that's half those high-risk people that don't get seriously ill or don't get ill at all. Does it stop everybody? No. It's never going to stop everybody. Drugs are not 100% effective. They never have been. Do we have every reason to believe that whether the FDA has done their studies or not, this stuff works? Absolutely. Look at the transmission rate in countries that are high in malaria. Look at the differences. Why? Why? Are they social distancing? They are not social distancing. They haven't been social distancing. Cut the bullshit. And some of those countries are shit eaters too. We need to be honest about the role that the different routes of infection play. If you happen to be somebody without a strong cultural connection to good hygiene, white man sanitation good, you need to get out, and we can't let you come in if you're not already here. If you're not an American citizen and in that situation, you need to leave now. That's just the way it is, and we can't let people come into this country until we can prove that that is not the case. That's hard to do. So guess what? The borders need to stay slammed closed for the time being, because Italy and the rest of Europe brought a bunch of those people into their country from the Middle East and other places that do not have that cultural acclimation. And look what's happening to them. You want it here? Well, that's how you do it. You know what? Where is the problem? The worst in our states? Gee, I wonder. You know, this stuff's not that complicated, folks. But the truth is, we've been lied to about vaccines more times than I can count. The odds of them working are very low. Even if they work, it will take well over a year, probably more than 2, before you can actually get one into distribution and get people vaccinated to a degree that's sufficient to slow this thing down. It's not a choice. You can't lock the economy down for 2 years or year or 9 months. You can't do that. It's not a choice. If you do it, every single commercial real estate contract explodes. It blows up. All the subservient sides blow up. The cash flow for counties and states and cities blows up. Do you know what pays for those hospitals? Those cash flows. You are playing the game that was played over in Vietnam when they said we had to destroy the village to save it. You are destroying the economy, and the economy is what supports the healthcare system. I don't care whether you like this. It is a fact. A hospital, a doctor, a nurse does not make one car, does not make one loaf of bread, does not do any of those things. It is parasitic. It is a necessary parasitic function because without healthcare, economic output goes way down. But it consumes some of what the rest of the economy produces. These are facts. You must have a vibrant economy to have a vibrant healthcare system. Must. Can you run on surplus for a little while? A couple weeks? Sure. Can you do it for a year? 9 months? 6 months? No. The madness, folks, must end. Those people who scaremongered must not only be shunned, they must be drummed out of public life. Permanently unemployed. Let the sharks eat them. You cannot burn the village to the ground in an attempt to save it. It doesn't work. We need to tell the truth about where the antagonistic factors are that may make a coronavirus infection worse, because some of them are under people's control. Some of them are behaviors. Consuming nicotine is a behavior. Stopping is hard, but it is a behavior. It is a known antagonist to the process. It is likely that it makes it worse. Likely. Not assured. Likely. Using ibuprofen, aspirin, or naproxen is likely to make an infection with coronavirus work. It is not certain it makes it worse. We don't have the science on that yet, but it is likely. It is likely that hydroxychloroquine has both a prophylactic and a treatment positive effect. It is likely that this is true. We know this because the transmission rates in countries that are full of malaria and therefore full of malarial drug use as a prophylaxis is much lower than those countries that are not. That does not prove that these drugs stop transmission, because obviously they don't completely stop it or they wouldn't have any cases, and they have some cases. But it is likely that these drugs work. For those people who want those drugs under medical supervision, they should all be able to get them. By the way, some states are actually having their health departments pass emergency regulations that say doctors cannot prescribe them that way. That's insane. It is as insane as the state of Pennsylvania saying you can't do emergency dental procedures unless you have a negative pressure room, which no standard dental office ever has. So if I've got an abscessed tooth, I can't get it pulled or root canaled in the state of Pennsylvania right now because someone might get coronavirus. Do you realize that if I've got an emergency situation like that, that can kill me? We have the mainstream media telling people that it is Trump's fault that a sweet old couple drank fish tank cleaning solution. That's a lie. Nobody told anybody to drink fish tank cleaning solution. Nobody implied it either. Folks, we need to stop with the bullshit. And for those people who think they are so great and they've got blue check marks on Twitter and by God, they're running around telling you what you ought to do, and you got Fauci, I remind you that all these people ran this same bullshit during the time that AIDS was going around. And as a result of listening to them, 500,000 Americans are dead. What we should have done is followed the epidemiological evidence. Even though we didn't have proof, we had the evidence that the bathhouses were the source of transmission and rampant spread in the community. We should have closed them immediately. Who gives a crap if 20% of your voters are gay? Oh, man, I might lose an election. Well, okay, you won the election and now you're a senator and 450,000 Americans are dead. Because your politics was more important than people's lives. Well, we have to leave things locked down because we created a scared situation where everybody in the damned grocery store is afraid they're going to die. Well, what's going to happen when the county and state governments, when their budgets all collapse because there's no tax revenue coming in and the hospital's closed? A lot of people are going to die. Not of coronavirus. They're going to die of heart attacks. They're going to die of strokes. They're going to die of other things that were very easy to resolve and that we can resolve, but they're going to die because you destroyed that. If you have an abscessed tooth in Pennsylvania right now, you may die. You may die because you can't go to your dentist and have him yank the damn thing out of your head. That is a direct result of the stupidity coming out of our government. You think this is, folks, this is not the more restrictive, the better. That's not how it works. There are collateral costs to every decision you make. We have people, can you top this or hold my beer is not an appropriate reaction. It is not the appropriate act of somebody in government, and it is not the appropriate act of people in the media who appear to have as their job scaring you to death. The truth from the facts are that we're only getting tests, even in Italy, of people who are symptomatic. That's the truth. We don't know what percentage of people get this virus, never get any symptoms at all. But as a result of having had the virus, they're immune. They are perfectly safe to go do whatever the hell they want to do in the day of this virus because they can't get it again. Now, may it turn out that that is not perfect immunity? Yep. May that immunity fade over time? Yep. And if it does, that's tough shit. However, this much we also know. If you survived it once, you might survive it again. Your odds are actually much better, right? You didn't get sick. You didn't get sick the first time. Why would you get sick the second time? I mean, is it possible that kind of like a allergen, the first one sensitizes you and the second one hammers? Maybe. But is there any evidence for that whatsoever? No. There's no evidence. None. So until you have it, stop with that. Is it true that millennials can get sick and die from this thing? Young people? Yeah, it absolutely is. It's absolutely true. We need to be honest with people about the odds, honest with people about the risks. We need to be honest with people that if you as a young person go hang out or be around an old person, bad things are likely to happen to the old person. That's not your fault. It's their responsibility to not be there. It's not your responsibility. They have mitigating acts they can take. They have the choice to take those mitigating acts or not. Some of them are going to get sick anyway, even though they take them. That's just the way life works. We all die of something. We must make an effort to separate out deaths that take place when someone has coronavirus and deaths that take place because of coronavirus. The two are not the same. What are deaths caused by coronavirus? Atypical pneumonias, for the most part. One number is smaller than the other. What is the true risk? I was sent a thing from a concierge practice that quoted the now known false statement that the mortality rate on this virus was well north of 2%. That's bullshit. We know factually that there are a huge number of people that get it and never have a single symptom, or it is so mild that they don't identify it as being sick. Yet those people had the virus. They're not in the denominator. We know that today, the majority of testing, in fact, all of it, is people who either have a lot of money and are celebrities and thus get tested asymptomatically, which is not you, me, and everybody else on the street, or it is people who actually get really sick and they show up in one of those testing centers because they have symptoms, or they show up in a hospital, an ER, or whatever have you. And in New York and in LA, they are now only testing people who are admitted, where it would change the treatment path. Which means that we are dramatically undercounting the people who have the virus. What ought we be looking at? Death rates. Because that's what matters, right? And then you say, well, but we got vents. We have to have more vents because people are going to get sick. They're going to need to go in the hospital. No, folks, vents don't work. The data out of Wuhan says 95% of the time you go in a vent, you die anyway. Can you show me data that we can do better? Well, how much better? Where's the data? Where is the data? Nobody's publishing that. Why not? Why not? Of all those people in America who died in the hospital, we've got, we've got, we got 400 some. I'm sure it'll be higher today. How many of those people were put on ventilators before they passed? How many people were put on ventilators generally? How many of the people that were put on ventilators are currently breathing and have recovered? They've been discharged from the hospital. They're okay. Let's just go even further. How many of those people that were put on ventilators were stepped down out of the ICU? I'll take that as success, which, by the way, it's not. But I'll take that as a measure of success. Is anybody publishing that number? There's not a single person that I have seen in the United States publishing that number, but we've got that number out of Wuhan. People who survived that went on ventilators, 5%. 5%. And yet, all over the media, pictures, Ford, Tesla, GM, we're all going to make lots of ventilators, and they're not going to do a damn thing. You must follow the evidence. You must follow the facts. 5% chance of survival if I get a vent versus not get a vent isn't changing outcomes. It's not bending the curve. It's not making things better. And shutting down the economy so that you can build 500,000 more ventilators when 95% of the time I die anyway if I get put on one is not going to change outcomes. What it is going to do is destroy the financial infrastructure that makes it possible for the hospital to exist. You're going to kill people, folks. Just like we did when AIDS was going around. We killed people. Stop the scaremongering. Stop propagating that crap. Reopen the economy. Get it open now. For those people that are at high risk, tell them the truth. You must take these steps. If you choose not to, very bad things are likely to happen. And if they do, we may not be able to help you. Talk to your doctor about whether or not prophylaxis may be appropriate for you. And if you choose that it is, you have the right to make that decision. Not a physician, not a bureaucrat, you. It may not work, it may work. You should have the facts as we know them, and then you should decide under medical supervision, because there are people for whom those drugs are very, very dangerous. No, you should not. Because you can't go to your doctor and get this, which, by the way, is exactly what's going on right now, you should not grab a bottle of fish tank cleaner and eat it. It is precisely the lying and the bullshit and the restrictions that have been slammed down on people on this, including physicians, that led those old people to go do that. Why didn't they call their physician? Why didn't they call any physician? Why didn't they call some random doctor or some COVID hotline and say, you know what, we're at high risk, we're scared, we want to use the prophylaxis that Trump was talking about. And they'd say, well, sir, we don't know if this works. It's not certified by the FDA to work. It hasn't been through testing, Just like this guy in Florida, by the way, who was on death's door. They told him all of this. His doctor told him, we don't have any of this FDA. He said, God damn it, give it to me anyway. And they did. And he's alive. And you know what? Those old people, they should have been able to make that phone call and have them say, look, all right, what other drugs are you taking? You give them the list. Sir, we really advise against this because it could cause a fatal arrhythmia in your heart and it could kill you. And then the man and women talk it over among themselves, and they say, well, what are the odds it's going to do that? Well, I don't know because you haven't had an EKG, and we don't have any really good way to do that right now with you not being sick. We recommend against it, but but if you choose, and you know what? Or maybe the doc would have said, you know what? Your health profile and the drugs you're taking suggest that this is probably not a problem. So here's the deal. I'll go ahead and I'll cut the prescription. Go pick it up. And here's the thing though. You have to promise me you're going to take one pill. You're going to take one pill, and then you're going to wait 24 hours. And you're not going to take any more. One pill. You're not going to take any more. You're not going to try to, supercharge your immune system. One pill. And then if you take the one pill, if you feel any of these things, any of these symptoms, you're going to stop and you're going to call me immediately. And that sweet old couple would be alive right now. Now, they may or might not get coronavirus, but they'd be alive. That's the difference between scaring people and running a bunch of bullshit and telling them the truth. We should have done it in the 1980s with AIDS, and we can do it now with this. We can reopen the economy and get people back to work. It's the right move. It's the only thing that will work. Stop the stupid, folks. Don't be a part of it. And for those people in the media and the political side that are doing it right now, they need to be the ones who pay for what they've done so far. I'm your ticker guy. And that's how it is.